Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ventures. This episode with Kim Porter, Eric Sullivan, and Saul Cates is different than the previous few dozen episodes on this podcast. Whereas previously, we've talked a lot about how to build a startup and the nuances of PR and marketing and operations and engineering and data science. In this episode, we go meta. We talk about purpose. We talk about asking interesting questions, both personally and professionally. We talk about bringing people together. We talk about how do we help more people flourish in this world that is in some ways crazy and insane and confusing, but in other ways full of opportunity. So if you are listening to this episode, you can also watch by visiting wclittle.com, and there you'll see more extensive show notes to the things that we talk about today. And if you're watching, you can also listen anywhere that you get your podcasts. You can just search for Ventures. So with that, please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Kim Porter, Eric Sullivan, and Saul Cates. All right, Kim, Eric, Saul, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I'm excited about this for a whole variety of reasons. Saul, would you mind teeing us up and welcoming our guests?
Absolutely, yeah. No, thanks for having me again. I think I'm up to 8 now of these. So at some point, I'm sure Google will find me in the histories of the internet and say, "What the heck were they talking about back then?" And hopefully these were good things, because I'm pretty excited to actually have two extremely awesome guests in their own rights, coming in from their own worlds. And I find it intriguing to meet new people out there that are hustling a new game that they know that no one else knows. And I think that's what you see here with two luminaries in their own world. So, Kim and Eric, I've met them both actually very recently through other people in my network. And that something is sort of important as an entrepreneur is connecting with a lot of good other people in your network or other networks that are diverse, not just in their backgrounds or the skin color or nationality, all those things that we all look to for diversity, but also diversity of network and perspective and education. I know we've talked about this in other episodes, so this is where I find the game changers come in and understand how to bring a lot of new approaches to an area or a problem set or a community. And that's why I'm really excited to introduce both Kim and Eric to the game here. So I'll start with Kim. Kim Porter. I met you recently through a friend named Kelly, who is actually Kelly Joe was our last guest on this series. So I'd love for you to just maybe introduce yourself a little bit, your background, where you come from, and then maybe softball back to Eric, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. It's wonderful to be here. So yeah, we all love Kelly Jo, and I appreciate that she's introduced me to your network. I come from an engineering background, pretty hardcore engineer. Graduated from a university in the Midwest, went and did a little bit of DoD work, doing spacesuit glove design in particular on the East Coast, and then realized that I needed to mesh my passions a little bit more with what I could do. And contacted Nike and said, "Hey, do you need any biomechanical people there?" Nike at the time had no engineers really, and they're like, "Yeah." So I went to Nike and then transitioned through consultancies, learning more about product development and how engineering and processes can help product development from more the industrial design perspective. And started my first company, which is where I found Ziba Design, which is a world-renowned design firm in Portland. I was there for a decade, and then started my second company called Hatch One, which is still in existence. I think it's 20-something years old now. And I've kind of woven full-time positions where clients is like, "Kim, we need you to help launch this line," or "We really would like you to help us design micro robots for a completely new industry." And so I've left Hatch One and then ramped up and ramped down as I've helped other companies, and then, ramped Hatch One back up when new opportunities arrived. So that is the softball going to Eric.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is the first time I've ever met Kim, and I want to go directly into questions, but I'll control myself a little bit. Wow, that's a really cool background. Absolutely fascinating. My name's Eric Sullivan. I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska. Grew up in a football family. You know by looking at me that I broke that tradition. Um, I, I spent a lot of time in financial services, a little bit of time in politics, 2 years in politics before realizing that wasn't for me. National politics is an extremely different beast, and when I got the advice from someone in the political world that I needed to get a dog if I wanted a friend, I thought this isn't a very cool place to be at all. So I went back to financial services. I always was a rainmaker and a market developer in the organizations that I was in. I had two things going for me. Number one was my ability to build networks and relationships. And then number two was that I was a millennial that understood technology. And I understood that both of those things were absolutely skill sets that gave me an edge on other people in that world. And so I really leaned into that, and I became, one of the rainmakers at the firm that I was at. In doing so, I had several clients that were kind of in that multi-generational wealth space, and then a few younger upstart entrepreneurs that had, some pretty serious successes that I became. They asked me to become their chief strategist and build client acquisition channels for them. One of my clients, when I went out to do that, I started a company called Sullivan Strategies, which was just a lazy version of naming of Thumos in the beginning. But built client acquisition channels for a client that was really large in the buying, selling, and leasing of IP addresses for data scraping. Then we vertically integrated and created a point and click modules for mass data aggregation and data scraping called Scraping Robot. In doing that, I recognized that there was a real opportunity to utilize the exact same technologies that we're using for aggregating data for building databases, and then also we could use similar technologies in order to automate the outreach process and scale the outreach process utilizing the business intelligence that we were gathering from publicly available data. And so Thumos today builds client acquisition channels mostly for high-ticket B2B companies. We're largely in the mass data aggregation space and also the automated outreach space and building bots for automated outreach. And we're moving into a space of building virtual influencers and leveraging those two technologies in order to reinforce the personalities and presence of virtual influencers that have our capabilities as both to collect data and the actuators that we have for going out and engaging people.
Right. Wow.
So, okay, about a million things for us to talk about there. One thing, Saul, we have not done in the last few episodes is actually introduce you. So for those who don't know you, Saul, who
Sure.
are you?
Yeah, sure. So long and short, I can tell you what I am now. I just changed my role recently at my job, so I'll tell you all the good news. So, hey everybody, I'm Saul. I've been with many different companies over the years, but 25 years or so in cyber and cloud. My focus is technology. I love solving problems, problems of all kinds, human problems, political problems, computer problems. I love problems. Never let a good problem go to waste. That's my life. You'll put it on. Somebody's gonna put that on my headstone. I swear to God. It's right up there with the other one that I won't say publicly because it's not meant for children to hear. But my mission in life is solving really hard problems, and I've stumbled into some great companies. I work at Thales, which is a 90,000 employee conglomerate, French. I am the solutions architect for them right now, running both technology and innovation and transformation transversely as a solutions architect. And I find problems and I fix them all day. And to me, a problem is like, hey, you can change, right? You can do something radically different tomorrow, and your outcomes are going to be so much different. And that's what I do a lot. I love outcomes. I love planning and building outcomes and then reverse engineering the plan. right? Or the innovation or the magic you had to do. And it's actually not magic. So that's me. I love doing that. And then I also work heavily with, Will and Intium on the Proto side. It's a very good network of great people that allow me to connect others, bring good, visions together. And the one thing, Will, I want to talk more about sometime is that Proto vision. That's the part that I found is very compatible with what I do here at my day job is building bridges and protocols between all these different markets that we work in, but still find a way to wire in that community connection and that human flourishing and bringing in really good talent to the right problem at the right time, right? That's the thing that I love about it more than anything else. So it's like having all your cake and eating all the cakes, making all the pies with all your friends, and that's what makes me happy and excited. So that's me.
So,
and I'm your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Too.
This is going to be a bit of a panel conversation, and one thing that's in my brain as I hear even the three stories is around the creativity of the career path. And we hear a lot of people today who are either coming out of college, and we all can kind of empathize and be like, whoa, okay, the world you're coming into is pretty crazy. And a lot of our colleagues that are reinventing themselves and are kind of wondering kind of what to do next. Maybe I'm curious to go to the three, maybe in the order that you started, and just kind of talk about like what is your advice for those college students today, or for those that are reinventing themselves right now? What is this world that you see, and kind of how what would be your recommendations for how to navigate it?
That is such an awesome question. And it's funny because I was just asked to be on a panel at how should I say this, as a university, where they connect recent grads with people in the real world to not only help mentor, but possibly hire. And the panel was fascinating because the students asked amazing questions. So, and it was interesting. There were like 6 of us on the panel, and someone would say something, and then one of the other panelists would just counter it. And so the students got this nice balance of like, yeah, do your passions. No, do the money or whatever.
Right.
So it was great. So I think I'll answer that in 2 different ways. I'll answer, Will, your question, and then I'll kind of give you the path that I went on, because people seem to be fascinated with my path. So my answer is always, you got to do what's inside of you, which is Soul's question to what do you do? Like, he's a problem solver. Like, you got to find out what is inside you that drives you, that you feel every day is a Saturday, because that is my life.
Yeah.
And I've said that for decades. I'm like, every day is a Saturday. I never know what day of the week it is. Today I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. It's always the same, because you find that place where your passions meet what you want to do and can make it a career. So that's my answer. My story is I also paint. And so when I'm looking for colleges right out of high school, I'm like applying to art stuff. I'm applying to engineering stuff only because my basketball coach, whose wife worked with my mother, who was also my math teacher, told her she should probably look at engineering. I think she'd be really good. So literally, like, the influence from outside people, mentors, your math teacher, your coach, like, you should probably check this out. I'm like, no, I just want to paint. So it wasn't until literally I graduated the day, and my mother sat me down and said, you need to choose where you're going to school and what you're going to do. And she recommended I go to engineering school because you can always paint on the side. And funny, it's just more recently where I'm on a string right now. I'm doing a painting a day for 100 days, and I'm on day like 41 or 46 maybe. See, I don't even know what day that is. So my path was going to university, studying engineering. They gave me some money, so I had to declare a major. I declared civil because somebody told me that was the most general. I should show up at a sewage treatment plant going, this is so not what I want to do for a living. Immediately changed my career, not knowing what. And fortunately, I was at a university that had a major that was called engineering science mechanics, which was all the mechanical engineering, a lot of the electrical engineering, and then they allowed you to emphasize in a certain area. I knew at that point really early that I wanted to design things for humans or that related to humans in some way. I did not want to design convolutes of a screw. I didn't want to work at 3M and design Velcro, you know. I wanted to do something very much related to helping or integrating with humans. And so then my path, so I have a major in engineering science and mechanics with a emphasis in biomedical engineering. That was way before biomedical engineering even existed. So then my path led to spacesuits. Like, cool, they needed biomechanical analysis of like why this woman astronaut couldn't grasp tools in space. I'm like, how cool is that? And then I was a runner and I'm like, why are shoes so bad? You know, Nike, cool, let me just call them up. You know, Ken Solaire came out. And then, you know, then I found out at Nike what an industrial designer was. I'm like, whoa, that's like art and engineering combined. Like, why didn't I know about that? So you kind of go down that path. And then Hatch One hatches. And now I get to do it every day.
Nope.
Whoa.
Whoa.
It's a high bar, man.
That's
Stop.
that's so awesome. That's so awesome.
And Nebraska used to kill us every football season. I went to Iowa State and it would be like 48-0 or like maybe, you know.
That's
ridiculous.
That's really interesting. I have I remember a very distinct loss to Iowa State in the early 2000s where Niles Paul caught a game-winning catch and 3 yards outside of the end zone. He just dropped the ball. He just like celebrated too early and dropped the ball, and we lost the game to Iowa State. So there you go. Sorry for calling you out, Niles Paul. So that's really interesting. That's a fascinating background. I think, you know, the curiosity bug. I mean, if I had any advice, you know, it's not about like, hey, this is the right path to take at all. It's about being curious and self-seeking. And when I say that, I mean going internal instead of external. So not what the world expects you to be. I think that kills people, and people die inside when they seek what it is the world tells them that they should be. I think that seeking what it is that is true to you, and what is, you know, what I would call, you know, your Dharma, like what is your purpose in life? And I think that our entire purpose in life is figuring out what our purpose is. If I were to be totally honest, I mean, I have no clear understanding of exactly what my purpose is today, except for I know that it's to help other entrepreneurs build kingdoms of good, and to be a good steward of what it is that I have and what it is that I'm building, and be a support system for them. There's this quote from the Gita that I pulled up during this because it just totally related to what you said. And it says, and so to give you some context, and I just said this in a podcast, I don't know, a week ago that I was on, was, you know, there's Arjuna in the Gita, and Arjuna is going out to battle to fight against his family. It's a really messed up situation. He's in a chariot, and he's with his best friend Krishna, driving to the middle of this this battlefield in order to talk to the enemy, but the enemy's actually his cousin. It's his family. And he becomes paralyzed by the situation. He drops down in the fetal position and he says to Krishna basically like, hey, I can't do this. And this is when he realizes that Krishna is actually the higher power. Krishna is actually God and has been this entire time. And Krishna says to him, and do not think, Arjuna, old comrade, that it would be easier to abandon your present responsibilities. One's duty in life is one's dharma. This essentially means that you have to live by your inner truth rather than your selfish desires. One must do one's duty, no matter how devoid of merit your responsibilities and commitments may seem. They are preferable to the responsibilities of another, no matter how well you may perform them. You, Arjuna, are a warrior prince by birth and training. If you now try to avoid your duty and mutate into a sensei, which is a spiritual ascetic, merely because you face doing some things that you imagine are painful, you will be violating your inner truth, your conscious, your dharma, which is the root basis of your life. And it is even better to die doing one's duty than to do the duty of another. And so there are so many opportunities in this world, more opportunities than any other time, for anyone to build the purpose that aligns with them and that they feel is in alignment with their character. And so I think that we can build our own reality, and that we don't necessarily have to bend to the rules of society today. And I think that that's been compounded by the situation that the pandemic has brought on the world also, is that there's more flexibility in the way that we can show up in the world and the way that we can live our lives. And so for me, unlike Kim, there wasn't, my background story isn't really all, that type of impressive, right? I was when I was young. I was an addict really early. By the time I was 19, I was in recovery. Oh, okay, cool. So we got 3 addicts on here, recovering
full-on pothead, like.
Wow. Yeah.
I was much darker than that, but yes.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, by the time I was 19, I was in rehabilitation, and I was 22 before I went back to college. I had no idea what it was that I wanted to do with my life, but I knew that in recovery, I wanted to be a better person than I was in my past. I'm an extremely dyslexic person. And so like through the school system growing up, I had extreme trouble with the curricula that were provided to me. And it wasn't until I was 22 years old and I went back to school that I realized that I had extreme capabilities, and that no one ever told me that the real world was going to reward me for being a cheater, which means getting other people to do my work for me. And and so it turns out that getting other people to do your work for you is exactly what the free market system rewards. And so that's honestly how any success that I've had has been built on the shoulders of other people that are far more capable of me. And I'm really lucky to be part of an organization like Thumos, where I have really talented people that I get to work with every day, whose capabilities far outpace mine. And if I can build something like Thumos, or my team can build something like Thumos, then a young person can find a place for themselves in the world, no matter who they are.
Great stuff, man. Wow. Both of those are really good, just good advice for life, and interesting backgrounds, and sort of how you found and stumbled your way through your decisions of where you or your dharma, or your true calling or cause, or what your purpose is, or what wakes you up, right? I mean, I woke up this morning way too early, and my wife will be upset with me because I didn't get a good night's sleep, because I had an idea that I had to connect with another idea, and it wouldn't go away until I did it, right? And that's who I've been since I was a 6-year-old kid. I found out later in life, not only was I an addict, and I was that was more of just a mechanism really for the underlying problem, which is I'm bipolar. I have hypomania. I can ride the wave all day, man, and I can have a lot of fun, and I can be a lot of fun in the room. And so ever since I was a kid, I figured out, later on in life, how these games played, in the real world at the big stage. But I made all the mistakes, and I forged ahead for my brother and sisters. They didn't have to make them all for themselves. I did it for them. But as part of that, I learned a lot, and I stumbled in life, and I didn't finish high school. I didn't go back. I literally walked into the local community college and got a GED the day I was done. And I said, okay, I'm going to get this done. I nailed it 100%. I'm out of here. I was never a good learner. but I could figure out everything. I could cheat. I always could cheat. Not like cheat like I'm gonna go over here and steal all the answers. Like I figured how to cut all the corners. It's like I figured out the cheat codes to everything I looked at. That's how I got through my learning exercises. So I know there's other people like this in the world. I meet them all the time, and unfortunately, they didn't stumble up into life and land in the right places. Some of them went into the dark places and didn't come out. Some of them went to places that there's people out there that are in way better situations than they should have been, and there's some people that are on the complete other end of that spectrum, right? Life is a complicated thing. You don't get a manual that has a lot of good instructions. Every day is a test of some kind, right? Whether it's a test of your will, your spirits, your knowledge, whatever it is, your network. And so at some point realize that it's all a game. In your own way, in your own in your own life, you'll figure out there's a game being played, and you are the core character player on that game, and then all these other players around you are playing their game their way. What you want to do is find people that literally want to change the game that's being enforced on us, because there is a series of systems that we think about all the time: political, economic, financial. You think about operating systems, right? I think I said this in an early episode. I was a 19-year-old kid trying to kill Root because the ideas wouldn't stop connecting in my brain until I could kill him, right? That was a journey for me to build a cybersecurity, sort of, career that I didn't have as something as an option in high school, right? Like going into cyber and being in this little rural town in Oregon, no, that wasn't like a career path option. I didn't know what the heck that was. I mean, it was the 80s and 90s, so I was experimenting with the world around me, which was very rural and not a lot of connections. But I stumbled into some really good people, and over time, that's what shaped my career. Is I was smarter than a lot of other people. I didn't know it, and I didn't feel comfortable knowing that. Actually, I know I'm smarter than most people in the room when I'm in the room, and it's daunting to think about it, because it then ends up creating an ego that you have to then fight, and all these logical things in your brain are just fighting with each other. It's like, all I want to do is be me, and that's the part that is the aha, right? What's your me? What's your dharma? My me is solving problems, but my me is also being a very altruistic leader. That's something I realized I was, throughout my later career, that I had amalgamated and picked up all the good people that I met along my life, and took a little something of them, put them in me, right? Or I took a little connection from them and took it forward and connected to somebody else that needed it, right? And that sort of like networking and sort of building my net worth in my network is where I think now, looking in my 40s, I'm at a stage that I didn't know existed, and I'm now at a level that all four of you, are actually on a game with me, playing at a much bigger stage than you all realize, because we're in the game of change now. And so I think it's ripe for kids coming out of high school, coming out of college, coming out of the crisis, figuring out what their dharma is as soon as possible. Don't waste your time. Don't waste I'm not saying don't go to school. That's not my message here. I'm saying find your path to education. Find your path to your dharma. Whatever your calling card is for that. Find your way to that as soon as you're possible, and find a network or a support system that can get you there. And don't find the dark ones. Stay away from the dark ones. Right? And there's so many variables I can show you along the line of my life, because I tried all the things, and I can tell you there's some very good don't do this lessons in life that you should just be able to pick up in a grocery store real easily, and everybody should know them, right? And how do you reinforce that? That comes with really good messaging, creating change management in our societies and stuff. So I know I'm way off on on the question, but I think that the answer to any kid I met is, don't take the path that you think you have to fit in. Write your own, man. I've written my own job description so many times. I mean, I literally write it for my bosses, and they're like, yeah, that sounds like what you do. I'm like, cool. So, yeah, write it yourself. Do it if you can. Write it yourself as fast as you can, as soon as you can.
So, Kim, Eric, following this theme that Saul brought up and is in line with kind of what we've been talking about here in terms of, I like that the purpose of life is to find your purpose. I like this line of thought. So Kim, for you, where are you in your own journey of finding your purpose, and what questions are coming to mind that you're pursuing through that discovery process?
Yeah, another great tangent, because I shared this with Saul when I first met him, I think on the very first call. So I've designed so many things. Like, I think I probably have a few tons of that plastic floating out in the little swirl plastic in the ocean. Because, you know, my kids often ask me, like, how much, I've probably done hundreds of products now, like entire systems with circuit boards and plastic parts and sheet metal parts and, you know, scanners to snowboard bindings to everything.
Wow.
And I'm like, I want to do good. And what that I'm still, and this is just the aha that I've had in the last quarter, probably. Like, I really want to do good and still formulate it, still kind of, the path is being written as we speak. Is it a process or a product that's for disadvantaged people? Is it not even a product? Maybe I'm going to, you know, move away from stuff and go more towards systems or strategies to put in place, or connecting of things similar to what, you know, what Proto is all about. I don't know yet. So I can't answer the second part of your question, Will, but the first part of the question, I have felt very strongly the last quarter, and I think it's been formulating for probably a few years. Like, I really, my last position, I was a director of a very young, mostly female engineering team. And it kind of just reinforced that I have so much to give. I want to do good. I can either mentor people. I want to make products more simple that are sustainable. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll let you know when I find out.
That means you have found something, though. You found a true north or an ethos that wakes you up every morning like, I'm going to do a good thing today. If I get an option, it's a good thing.
It's in there. And I think it's always been in me. And I think it's just kind of blossoming again. Like the lotus flower is just growing again. I had it really strong in my 30s. And then, you know, the kids and the, you know, the system that we live in and the commerce, and I've kind of gotten off my path, and it's kind of nudging me back into this path of, I need to do good.
That's good clarity, man. You got really good clarity yourself there, because you know that you went one direction you don't like and you want to come back to another. I mean, I've had many of those in my life, and being honest with yourself and others is a key thing. Eric, what do you think?
I think for me, it's been right now spending a lot of time thinking about known unknowns and unknown unknowns, and thinking about my thinking, and oddly enough, understanding the machine that is my brain. And so when I say that, I mean, you know, what is the, you know, I mean, what does brain chemistry look like? What does brain chemistry look like? How is it that it's affecting me, affecting my decision making? What are the things that I do and don't understand about myself? Seeking internally to really understand who I am as both as, you know, a person, but also like what are the default modes. And I mean, I think right now I'm in a place where I'm doing some rewiring. I've made a transition from being a strategist for other people that are running companies largely and doing strategy-based work to being a CEO and being a leader within an organization. And it requires something completely different, and you have to closely monitor who you are as a person and what example you're setting, which makes you start to really seek. And so thinking about my thinking is one of the things that's huge for me. And then understanding understanding what helps me and helps other people get into efficient states and flow states. What does it look like, when you have dopamine hits? What does it look like, when you're coming down on serotonin a little bit? What's a healthy loop of that look like? All of those things I'm spending a ton of my time in that
Wow.
space and trying to help the other people in my organization understand those types of things as well, so that we can all grow together as a team and as a unit. And if we can do that, I think that we can achieve really, really amazing things. But in order to build mechanisms of change, in order to build the types of things that we're building, which are literally brains, we also need to understand neurochemistry and our own neurochemistry, and we need to relate that to the things that we're doing. And so that's where I'm spending a ton of time. Yeah.
Neuroplasticity
Yes.
is magic.
Yes.
I'm all about neuroplasticity. So Eric, that resonates a lot.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that well, it's this conversation, the people that are in this room, I'm seeing a pattern here where there were literal rewirings of our brains.
Sure.
There was a point in each of our lives where we didn't know this before the call, everyone. But that we all had addiction problems and issues, and there was a turning point in our lives. And I can tell you that before that turning point in my life, I was a completely different person. And there was a moment in time where I called my friend and I said, I'm going to be a completely different person than I've been up till now. And my entire life changed. And I rewired my brain, and I've been rewiring it ever since. And I've realized that there's true genius in every single person on this globe's brain that can be tapped into. And it's about finding that, and that's part of the finding the Dharma. What is your genius? Tap into it. And then the other portion of it is what Kim's talking about now. How is it that we take that extreme ability that we have, and how do we compound the good in the world through finding the other portion, our purpose that we can apply that to.
Very well said.
Yeah, that's good. So, okay, so building on this foundation then, which is incredibly important. What are now the professional questions that are driving you today? Like, what are you up to in life right now, and what are the questions that are literally or figuratively keeping you up at night? Kim, you want to go first?
Sure. What's keeping me up at night right now is there a way to put strategies in place, either processes or things maybe, that create efficiencies outside of what you believe? That's what's keeping me awake. I did a lot of strategizing and sketching and implementing in my last kind of really key position. And how can that be transferred into anything like raising children, creating a new company? Can you put a template in place for someone to just take it and use it? You can. I don't think anybody has yet. So that's what's keeping me up. Like, what does that look like?
I have a similar, I guess, view of that. I mean, so I always think there's a template for almost everything, right? And I always look at something, I try to break it down into its fundamentals so I can look at it almost like a flat thing. Like, okay, I've seen this before. I know where everything is. I know how these will work out. So I'm notorious in an organization for completely disregarding hierarchies. Nope, don't care. We're going to cut through all the crap and get right to the person that knows the answer. That's the right way to do this, right? Yes. Okay. And so that's sort of like, if you have a culture around you that is reinforcing limitations on creativity or limitations on exploring how you can become that new leader, you got to find ways to break it. or you'll go insane. That's how I feel about it. So the thing that keeps me up is like, I'm a technology leader, and I know what that means now more than I ever did before. It sounded like just words at one point, like hey, leadership is a thing you should probably like learn someday. No, it is actually a critical component to any successful team. Imagine that. Doesn't mean somebody has to be the boss. It means that you have to have strong leadership. I mean, this happens all the time and so many different other parts of our human endeavor, whether it's in the military or you see it in special forces where there's a team, that A team is a trusted team, but it's also the support team behind them that everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm safe. Right. I mean, the Marines, the Navy SEALs are here. The Marines are very happy to see the Navy SEALs. So building leadership is beyond just putting a reporting structure. It's getting people the tools and the skills and reinforcing it and giving them the opportunity to use them and actually empowering people. Don't manage them. Like, it's all these things that as leaders coming into their own or my own, when I did it, I now have a retrospect that is much more insightful than I did 3 months ago. I'm similar to you, Kim. I've had an awakening in the last 3 to 5 months now. Probably sitting on my butt has really helped that, but in this closet. But I get where from in long term, where the sort of the change needs to go is look at everything. Again, I look at it flatly, but look at everything as cleanly as you can and say, okay, how would we change this? How do we fix the problem? Because I'm a big believer that we can look at a problem and constantly readjust our approach to it until it's optimally solved forever. It will never actually, I mean, it's just like cybersecurity. I talked about this in earlier episodes. Like, you're never done. You keep on trying to get better. Right? That's what you do. And that's a good message for life is get better at being better. Right? You talked about in your way, Eric, of like, wiring your brain and all that. Like, find a way to do better every day, make yourself and your system better every day. And you can do that with your teams. You teach them to do that every day. That's where compound change happens. And that's something that I got really good at in the last couple of years. So I'm excited to do more of it with more people at bigger stages. That's when you figure out you're doing something right, is like, okay, this scales up as more people adopt the goodness of this approach, right? Try to fix the system. Don't just fix the symptom.
How about you, Eric? Professionally, what questions are you pursuing currently?
Yeah. Well, the questions that I'm pursuing are, I think what's keeping me up at night is questions and what's keeping me up at night is, am I asking the right questions? And do I have the exposure that I need in order to correlate enough data points in order to ask the right questions? And so what that really means is making sure that I'm accessing I have a list of 25 things that are really specific that I monitor and that I try to make sure that I'm reading up on, that I think feed into the purpose of my company, which is building the most intelligent B2B client acquisition channels that the world has ever seen. And the unknown doesn't become a known unknown, like I was saying earlier, until you have enough data points in order to tell you that there may be a known unknown that exists. And so do I have the right information? And am I pulling together enough data points in order to create orthogonal connections that allow me to ask the right questions and not necessarily find the right answers? My team's extremely good at finding answers for me, but I need to be able to ask the right questions in order to guide them in the direction that they need to be going, and also not lose not to lose our true north. So not going too broad or not going outside of those 25 subjects that I'm currently monitoring in order to help to guide us in that direction, which is easier said than done. It's honestly 25 subjects is like walking a tightrope.
It's interesting though. You have a very concise number of subjects though.
Yeah.
I don't. Chaos. It's all chaos.
It's easy. It's easy to get in chaos, especially when you're a when you're a extremely curious person. You know, it's easy to find yourself in this ocean of thoughts, concepts, ideas, and to be lost in those. And for me, one from many. That's exactly. Yeah.
I still have to read it, but I've been told I need to.
No, I love that. Well, I also love that about you though, is like that's a place where I mean you're creating so much value in this world right now. Just so that everyone knows, yesterday there was a group I said, "Hey, can we get together to have this conversation?" And then Saul put together a group of people that was more valuable together than anyone could ever construct. Within like 3 hours, he had these people in a meeting room, all because they
Just put a carrot out there, like, "Hey, this is going to be a fun conversation. You want to come talk?" Yeah.
but that's only because you are in all of those places, which I think is where it seems you need to be right now.
I like what you
Which
said.
sounds overwhelming.
I like what you said, Eric, in terms of, do you have the right exposure to ask the right questions? I mean, that's something to spend a week meditating on right there. And
There's a way to tool it up though.
Oh yeah,
Done it. Yeah. So you put it into your planning, right? Quite a bit. But so when we were doing for a while, for those who don't know, when Talos acquired Vormetric, I got to take a role. We were talking about write your own job description. This was one of those events that happened, and they acquired us. There was a CTO office or division called the Technical Directorate, which, if you want to look it up, it's the French way to manage technology at scale in a large organization. And so it's a dedicated team that they're there to look at the tech and look to the right a bit, right? And what's happening next, what needs to happen, what's the problems we care about. Like that's what you care about. And having a team that needs to work together to reinforce a true north every day, or reinforce accelerated learning and things like that, you can literally tool it into the team's DNA, right? And this is by pulling some really good brains together that are constantly looking at not accepting the status quo. They are divorced from product. They're divorced from go to market. They're divorced from everything. This is your solutions disconnected. It's your think tank, right? And this think tank's job is to constantly destroy your assumption of good, right? That you did it right, or that there's a problem out there that we don't understand. Like that's their mission in life. And I did that for 5 years. That job was awesome. It's called technology strategy. It's sometimes also technical strategy is what's often called, and it's the practice of bringing a team together and getting them to look to the right in different horizons. We had 3 horizons. This is how we did it. You treat it like you're at NASA, right? You got Horizon 1. They're trying to get the mission ready. Like we're about ready to launch. That's the short horizon, right? Horizon 2 is trying to figure out what's next, right? We're going next to the moon. We're doing a orbit first. Next is moon. That team is planning all the de-risking, the understanding what's next, the predicting of what they need to do differently. Like all of that is something you can tool as a team, and I've seen this happen many times. And then your third horizon, this is the guys trying to get to Mars or Jupiter. Like, should we? First of all, but while we're making those decisions, they are completely divorced from the rest of the organization, and they have carte blanche. They have they have definitely accountability, but they have full availability and accountability and responsibility for finding that 36-month view, whereas the Horizon 2 was 18-month, and Horizon 1 is like now, right? And so I got off a little bit of a tangent, but that's how you create a structure or things like that reinforce this disconnected reality check that's constantly being fed and adjusting itself and working with a transversal team. That is a superpower, and you can wire that thing up. But there's tools to do that, and the people that used to be on that team with me, some of them are here in Proto, and you get to know them a little bit. But yeah, those games are fun. It's a flywheel effect. You can make the best thing forever, and it just keeps getting better with the team as it grows.
That's where the flywheel effect came from.
Yes, there's lots of those. I do lots of different flywheel approaches.
Mm.
I like to wire everybody together and then like, okay, yank, and then everybody starts winning.
One of the things from your story, Kim, that struck me is that you had somebody in your life notice you and say, you're going to be good. You're going to be good at this. And at Proto, the true north at Proto that we just keep banging this drum is around human flourishing, right? What the meta question that we ask is how do humans flourish? How can we help humans flourish? What does that mean deeply? Like the 5 whys behind that. And one of the things, as you were talking, one of the things that struck me is that there's so many people around the world, and it breaks my heart. They don't have somebody in their life who is noticing them, who is telling them, you can be an amazing engineer. Mm-hmm. And it's all in terms of solving problems. How do we solve this problem? How do we help people around the world be exposed to people and ideas so that they can ask the good questions and have people in their life know them and say, you're going to be awesome at X? Because middle school is often the key time in that, right? For a lot of people, middle school, they want to be noticed and they have that mentor. So I'm curious for the 3 of you, doing good, finding purpose, solving problems. What are you thinking about in terms of how do we
got an app design in my head going already for just combining the things you just said. I really want to bring middle schoolers to mentors and vice versa, right? And I want to create at a level that removes the bullshit. Sorry for the French there, but the end of the day, there's so much of this game that's reinforced by the institutionalization of our industrialization. Right. I mean, I don't know if I even said that right, but maybe that makes sense to some people. Industrial design and everything you learn, Kim, that you love about it is a fantastically awesome thing, but it also has this byproduct effect of creating wealth and waste, right? And all the other friggin' things that come with it. So for me, and sort of like the way I sort of look at the world, going out and trying to change it is, there should be a way to connect people's dreams or people's aspiring, I guess aptitude. I don't want to use aptitude tests, but you know what I mean. Like they want to know more, and so you've talked a lot about like the 5 types of people we've seen at Proto, and 2 of them being teachers and students, right? In the meta, level conversation. How do you wire this game together so that everybody wins? Everybody gets what they need. Those mentors, can help mentor somebody and build somebody's career, but at the same time, they're feeding a potential, a network of talent that's needed for them or someone in their colleagues or network. What's wrong with that? Giving a kid a connection to the right outlet of where they want their life to be when they're an adult. Right. That's what I think. So it's like almost like there's an instant game or app that starts to wire up in my brain that we could find ways to create systems of connections or systems of education and knowledge transformation that are just radically different than what we tried to invent over the last 140 years that we've industrialized ourselves here. And the other part that's sort of, a aha moment for me that I've had recently is just watching my own children. Some are going through traditional schooling and some are going into boot camps and going out and kicking up a career, right? They didn't want to go into college and do the long tenure. And then, Vivian wants to go and be a lawyer eventually. So she's got a long haul in front of her. That mentorship or path of how would you, if you could start and find somebody like Kim earlier in their career, or find somebody like me that was the bouncy kid that magically stumbled up successfully and didn't get culled out of the system. I think there's something to be said for eyes on that path, finding a way to do that. I don't know, Kim, what do you think?
I completely agree. And so 2 things. One, this college that contacted me saying, hey, can you help mentor these students, at least shed some light at options or opportunities? And then the middle school is spot on. So I used to teach only girls, middle school. They had to be from 6th to 8th grade through Portland. It was called Saturday Academy. And there were only 12 girls, and it was like, I think, a 6-week course. I planned the curriculum. It started with these timid young women coming in. Oh, I don't like math. I can't do physics, teaching them the basic core and giving them a box of crap like toilet paper rolls and macaroni and gum,
Life.
and having them solve a huge problem like moving water or sorting shapes or, really kind of basic physics, and watching these young women just light up and tapping into maybe just one or two of them to know that, yes, you're capable of doing this, and you actually might like physics and might want to be an engineer. The connection between these, whether it was in the 90s or now, and if it's an app or something more sophisticated, I don't know, but that's what's got to happen. And leadership is the key. Like every team that I lead, it's not managing. I'm not your boss. How can I empower you? How can we instill some trust that what I'm saying, you are completely capable of doing? Let's get it done. I'm all over that. That is huge. And yeah, I just happened to kind of listen to my mom as a 17-year-old who does that and maybe explored a little bit, So yeah, 100% agree. I also have kids. Some are going one route, some are going the other route. They're not all going to college. They don't all want to go to college. One wants to make chainmail.
Dope. That's totally cool. I know
cool?
my niece and nephews would totally like some chainmail.
She designed this. She made a halter top, totally sourced the right gauge wire. Mom, can I use your drill? Totally, it's amazing. So yeah, not, got to do your own, but connecting them, this is where soul comes in, connecting these and coming up with systems to make that happen. Instrumental.
Yeah.
Eric?
Anything you'd add on that? And
that's
macro. Yeah.
Well, it's like one of the things that I'm most passionate about, deeply at my core, is I remember the moment when I thought, when they introduced, reading into the curriculum when I was in the 2nd grade, and realizing that I couldn't do what everyone else was doing, and it changed me for years, right? But what no one told me about dyslexia was the other side of it, that I had these extreme capabilities that could be harnessed, except for my mom, and
You're special.
You're special, it's coming from your mom. And so one thing that I'm just very, because of that, and because of the way I felt for so long, that I'm super passionate about, is making sure that people know what I see in them, and making sure that they get credit for that, and they understand how special that is from someone else's vantage point. And then, much like what Saul does, is putting them around other people that aren't necessarily close to them, that can help them build on those capabilities. And then it's up to the individual to do it in the end. But
you can create the room. That's the thing, is you can create the room where there's the right team around the person, or a right team around the person. There's lots of teams that are right. I think this is getting back to leadership. You can create leaders. I've done it. Right. Leaders have to be created. They don't grow on trees. They don't get taught necessarily in education the right way. You see it in good military programs, or people that are in service to others, where you end up seeing a lot of leadership by design, right? Or at least a command set structure. Those types of things are all around a core need for a trust system, right? Between all the individuals. You've seen it in all the different cliche ways, the trust fall, the going to do some kind of trust building event or whatever, together to count on each other. That's what a team is. That's what leadership is somebody that helps create trust constantly, right? And then wires trust into the team and creates that room for that person that needs it. Because you know what? When you can bring a team around somebody that's in desperate need of that team, wow. And everybody says like, hey, you just sunk a 3. Like, no, it wasn't that hard. It was me connecting everybody before that I've met that I wasn't mean to or was nice to me, and I learned something from them. And I found out they're really good at that thing. Like Kim's really good at product, and I could bring her into a product conversation and she'd light up somebody's day, right? I know that. And so that's what that is. It's not a special
But
superpower.
this
It's
is,
just
well,
a trick.
but
trick.
it is a special superpower. Like back to my
Visualize
point,
it.
you have a special superpower to make that happen, right? Like that is something that's super apparent, is that you're a super connector. You bring people together that are of value to each other and to society. And that itself is one of the most valuable superpowers that has ever existed in the history of the world. And anything that ever happened that changed the game was led by someone like that. Like, my example is always like Voltaire. Who is Voltaire? Exactly. Right. Like,
I know Voltaire.
Yeah. And so
I've
like
quoted him in my blogs a couple of times, actually.
the greatest super connector of his time. So anyway, I think that itself is absolutely a superpower.
Oh, thanks for the ego boost.
Agreed. I second that.
So, all right, closing thoughts from the three of you. That we've touched on a number of different topics around personal questions, purpose, doing good, solving problems, neuroplasticity. Where, if you were to sort of wrap this up in terms of either reflections or questions for the future, kind of what would be sort of closing thoughts here? Kim, we'll start with you.
Oh, why do I always have to go first? I was thinking, the first thing that came to mind was gratitude, which is a little corny, but so wrapping that up in like a big philosophical, like monumental strategy that we want to go moving forward. I can't do that right now, but
yeah.
I'm grateful for this team of 4 that's in a room together, that we could compare notes and talk about neuroplasticity and doing good and more of that. The superpower interconnected needs to happen. And we might be at a time now with this whole life change that we've had in the past year. It might be time that it needs to happen. Globally, locally, socially, economically.
All the E's.
Yep.
Yes, agreed. Eric, what about you?
I think, I think that in closing, like if I were to sum this entire thing up, I would just say like, wow, I just had a call with really interesting people that have done really amazing things, that actually prove that human flourishing is possible if you open your mind to what is possible. And it's clear that you 3 did not take traditional paths. And so if we go back to the first question of the day, any advice that I would give a young person, it's really that you can create your own reality and your own world that you live in, and just don't settle. Just don't settle for what the world tells you to do, and create your own reality and make sure that it's in alignment with you and where you want to go in that moment. And you won't know at first where you're going to end up, but you'll land with both feet there at some point after a really long journey of trying to figure it out, which I'm still on.
Well, all right. So I'll teach you all a trick. So this is one I learned when I was a kid. It's a very simple game. It's be nice to the next guy or the next girl, or pay it forward, or don't be a dick, or whichever version you've heard of this in your life. But it is be a good Samaritan. It is find a way to connect to others in your community to help them with what you know how to do best. I happen to be, I guess, a super connector. Thanks for that, Eric. But in my mind, I see myself as just somebody that wants to reach in and altruistically help somebody, because I know it makes the whole machine better every time. That's why I do it, right? And I know I can do it at scale more than anybody else can, and I can help others learn how to keep this game. So, if anything, wrapping this up, I would love for children to know that there's so much out there that they can find that is, for them to write. So, with that's what I think about it. Write your own future. You can do it.
So where can, last question then, where can people find you online? Kim?
Kim at hatch1.com, hatch1.com. Simple,
Sweet.
short, sweet. Yep. It's even got a little bit of painting on it.
Nice. I know Eric had to just drop off. We'll make sure it's in the notes, but he's at thumos.io. It's Eric at thumos.io, I believe. And we'll make sure that's correct in the notes. And you guys know how to find me. I'm Saul Gates in Google. Find me. See ya.
All right. Well, really appreciate your time. This has been great. All right. A couple quick things before you go. Number one, I have a general newsletter where I write about technology and startups and health science and teaching people to code. And I write about a variety of different subjects that we talk about on this show. So if you go to wclittle.com, there you'll be able to subscribe, and you'll also be able to subscribe to particular topics. If you're just interested in one or a few of them, you'll be notified right when I publish new content in those areas. Number two, my partners and I at Proto Ventures have a portfolio company called Startup Rocket. If you go to startuprocket.com, there you'll be able to receive coaching guides and customize an operations framework for you and your team and your advisors to be on the same page in terms of what is the appropriate next step for you and your entrepreneurial journey. And finally, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review anywhere that you have listened to this podcast or watched this podcast, it would be super helpful to help those who might be interested in consuming this content as well. Thank you.